The wind was sharp, cold, and full of whispers. Mira walked alone through the high mountain trail, her boots pressing against the wet ground. Clouds hung low, hiding the sun behind a gray curtain. Her backpack was small and light, carrying only a blanket, a little food, and her last bottle of water. Mira did not know how far she had walked. It had been hours since she left the small road below the hill. She only knew she had to keep moving. The forest was quiet except for the soft sound of wind between the tall pine trees. Each step took her farther from her old life. The city, the noise, and the person she once was. Her heart still ached from the divorce. It had ended months ago, but the pain stayed with her like an old wound that never healed. She had lost everything, her home, her job, and the man she thought would never leave. When the papers were signed, she felt hollow inside. So she packed her things, left the city, and started walking. She wanted to find peace even if she didn't know where to look. The trail grew steeper. The air turned colder. She looked at the fading sun through the clouds and sighed. Night would fall soon. She needed a place to rest before darkness swallowed the forest. Her stomach growled. She sat on a rock, opened her small food pack, and ate a piece of dry bread. She could hear the sound of a river nearby, but the fog was thick, making it hard to see more than a few meters ahead. Suddenly, a loud rumble of thunder echoed through the sky. The first drop of rain fell on her hand. Then another. Within seconds, the storm began. Mira stood up quickly and pulled her jacket tighter around her. The wind grew stronger, throwing cold rain against her face. The trail became slippery, and she almost lost her balance on a loose stone. She looked for shelter, scanning the forest through the storm. There was nothing, only trees and darkness. She kept walking, hoping to find something, anything. After a few minutes, she noticed a faint shadow ahead. At first, she thought it was a rock or a large tree trunk, but as she came closer, she saw the shape of a building, small, wooden, and half hidden behind thick bushes. It was a cabin. Her heart jumped with relief. She ran toward it, slipping on the wet ground. The door was half open, its hinges rusted. She pushed it slowly and stepped inside. The cabin smelled of dust and old wood. It was dark, but at least it was dry. A broken chair lay on the floor. There was an old table in one corner, covered with spider webs. The roof had a small hole, but most of it was still solid. Mira took off her wet jacket and hung it near the door. She sat on the floor and took a deep breath. The sound of rain hitting the roof felt comforting after hours of walking in the storm. She finally felt safe, even if the place was falling apart. As her eyes adjusted to the dim light, she noticed strange markings on the walls. They looked like carved letters, circles, and lines. Some were old and faded, others still clear. They didn't look like normal writing. Maybe symbols or codes. Mira touched one of the carvings. The wood was cold and smooth under her fingers. This must be very old, she whispered to herself. She took out her flashlight and looked around more carefully. The floorboards were worn, but there was something special about the place. Despite being abandoned, it didn't feel empty. The air carried a quiet energy, like a memory that refused to fade. Mira found a dry spot and spread her blanket. She ate a little, and then wrapped herself in the blanket to rest. The rain outside grew louder, beating against the wooden walls. Yet she didn't feel afraid. As she lay there, she thought about her life. The years she spent trying to please everyone, the endless days of work, the silent nights after her husband left. For the first time in months, she wasn't surrounded by noise. No messages, no voices, no screens, only the sound of nature. It felt strange, but also peaceful. Before she fell asleep, she thought she heard a faint humming sound. It was soft, almost like a song carried by the wind. She sat up and listened, but it stopped. Maybe it was just the rain, she told herself, and closed her eyes again. When she woke up, the storm had passed. Pale sunlight slipped through the broken roof. The air smelled fresh and clean. Birds were singing outside. Mira stretched her arms and smiled faintly for the first time in days. She stepped outside the cabin and looked at her surroundings. The mountain air was crisp, the trees tall and green. Below her, she could see the valley, mist still floating over the river. It was a beautiful sight. Turning back, she looked at the cabin again. In daylight, it looked old but strong. The walls were made of dark wood with moss growing at the edges. Some windows were broken, and the door leaned slightly to one side. Yet something about it felt welcoming. She walked around the back and found a small pile of wood and an old water barrel. The barrel still held some rainwater. She washed her face and looked at her reflection. Tired eyes, messy hair, but somehow calmer than before. Mira thought for a moment. She had nowhere to go. No money left for hotels or transport. The next village was too far to walk without supplies. But here she had shelter. Maybe she could stay a few days just until she figured out her next move. She went back inside and began cleaning. She used a broken branch to sweep away dust and leaves. She fixed the fallen chair by tightening the loose joints with a piece of rope. Bit by bit, the cabin began to look alive again. In one corner, she found an old metal box half buried under the dust. She opened it carefully and found a few nails, a small hammer, and something that looked like a notebook. The pages were yellow, the ink faded, but she could still read some words. It wasn't a diary. It looked like someone's notes, drawings of the cabin, measurements, and some strange diagrams with circles and glowing lines. On one page, she could just make out the words Project Shelter, Phase 1. Mira frowned. Project Shelter? What's that supposed to mean? She said softly. She turned the pages, but most of the text was unreadable. She placed the notebook on the table and sat down, thinking. Who built this place? Why were there symbols on the walls and notes about some project? As evening came, she lit a small fire outside using dry sticks she found under the trees. The sun was setting, painting the sky with gold and pink. The cabin looked peaceful in the light, its walls glowing faintly in the sunset. Mira sat beside the fire, warming her hands. For the first time in a long while, she felt still. The pain in her heart was still there, but it didn't feel as heavy. Maybe this place had been waiting for her. Or maybe she had been waiting for it. When darkness came again, she went inside and lay down on her blanket. The strange humming sound returned, quiet and steady, coming from the walls. It felt like the cabin was breathing, alive but gentle. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Maybe I can stay here for a while." The hum grew softer, almost like an answer. And for the first time since her life had fallen apart, Mira slept peacefully, not in fear, not in sadness, but in quiet hope. The morning sun spread gentle light through the forest. Birds sang softly, and the air smelled of wet earth and pine. Mira stepped out of the cabin, her feet touching the cold ground covered in dew. The storm had cleaned everything, washing away dust and sadness from the world. She looked at the cabin again. In daylight, it appeared stronger than she thought last night. The roof had holes, the walls were cracked, and the door hung loosely, but the wood was firm. She touched the wall and smiled faintly. "You have survived a long time," she whispered. Mira decided to stay. She had nowhere else to go, and the forest felt calm and welcoming. The cabin had given her shelter when she needed it most, and she wanted to return the favor. She began cleaning properly that morning. Using a branch as a broom, she swept out dust, leaves, and pieces of old wood. She moved the broken table near the window and used her small knife to scrape away thick layers of dirt. Slowly, the inside began to look brighter. Near the fireplace, she found a pile of old ashes. She cleaned it out and collected some dry branches from outside to build a small fire. When the flames began to rise, the warmth spread through the cabin, chasing away the cold. Mira sat beside it, holding her hands near the gentle light, feeling peaceful. After eating a simple breakfast of bread and water, she opened the old notebook again. The words were still faded, but she could now read a little more. It mentioned something about energy lines and auto repair systems. She frowned. It sounded like something from a science report, not a simple wooden cabin. Still, she ignored the strange words for now and focused on practical things. She wanted to make the cabin livable. Outside, she found an old axe leaning against a tree. The handle was cracked, but it was still usable. She gathered fallen branches and began to chop them into firewood. Her arms grew tired quickly, but she didn't stop. The work felt good, honest, and grounding. Every strike of the axe helped her forget her pain. By noon, the cabin looked cleaner. The floor was swept, the broken chair repaired with rope, and the table wiped down. She even found a small shelf and arranged the few tools and supplies she had. While moving a heavy wooden board, Mira noticed something strange under the floor. A small metal handle was hidden beneath the dirt. She brushed it clean and pulled gently. A square section of the floor lifted up like a hatch. Inside was a dark space just large enough for a small box. Her heartbeat quickened as she leaned closer. She saw something metallic, covered in dust. Carefully, she pulled it out, a rectangular device with buttons and a faint blue light at the center. "What are you?" she whispered. wiping off the dirt. The blue light flickered once, then faded. Mira pressed one of the buttons. Nothing happened. She sighed, thinking it was just an old tool. Still, she felt curious. She placed it on the table beside the notebook. As she turned to close the floor hatch, she noticed something else. Small symbols carved on the wooden frame inside the opening. They were the same as the ones on the cabin walls. She traced one with her finger. The wood was smooth and cold, almost like stone. For a moment she thought she felt a faint vibration beneath her hand, but then it stopped. "That's strange," she murmured. When night came, Mira built a stronger fire. The forest outside was quiet, only the soft rustle of leaves and distant sound of owls. She sat by the fire and looked at the small device again. The faint blue light blinked once more, slow and gentle like a heartbeat. She leaned closer. "Are you trying to work?" she said softly. The light blinked again, this time a little brighter. She smiled nervously. "I must be tired," she said, shaking her head. But deep inside she felt a spark of wonder. She placed the device near the fire to dry, hoping the warmth might help. Then she took out a piece of broken glass and used it as a mirror to look at herself. Her face looked rough. Her hands scratched, but her eyes were calmer than before. "This place is doing something to me," she whispered. "Maybe this is what I needed." The next few days passed slowly but peacefully. Each morning, Mira worked to repair the cabin. She used old nails from the metal box, shaped pieces of wood, and tied ropes to fix the roof. She made a small bed using soft leaves and her blanket. The cabin began to change. The air felt warmer, the walls less dark. Sometimes at night she saw small glowing dots along the walls, faint blue lights like fireflies. When she touched them, they dimmed and then glowed brighter again. She remembered the words in the notebook. Auto repair system. Could these lights be part of it? She didn't understand how, but she didn't feel afraid. The cabin seemed alive, not in a scary way, but in a gentle, caring one. One evening, while fixing the door, she noticed the blue light from the device on the table had become steady. It wasn't blinking anymore. It was shining softly, filling the room with a cool glow. She stepped closer. "Are you on?" she asked quietly. The light pulsed once, as if answering her. Then a low humming sound began to fill the air. The same hum she had heard that first night. It wasn't loud. It was peaceful, almost like music. Suddenly, a few of the symbols on the walls began to glow faintly. Mira gasped and stepped back. The light spread slowly across the wooden panels, tracing the carvings with soft blue lines. It looked beautiful, like the forest had hidden magic inside it all along. She felt no fear. Instead, she felt warmth inside her chest. "You're waking up," she whispered, her eyes shining. The light pulsed once more, then stayed still. The humming sound continued for a few minutes, then faded. Mira looked around in silence, the cabin glowing gently in the dark. She felt like she wasn't alone. Not in a lonely way, but in a comforting one. She sat down by the table, staring at the glowing device. "Were you built to help people?" she asked softly. No answer came, but she didn't need one. She somehow knew it was true. The next morning she woke early and went outside. The forest was full of light again, the trees shining with morning dew. She walked to the stream nearby and washed her face. The cold water made her feel alive. When she returned, she found that the walls of the cabin looked different. The places she had cleaned the day before looked smoother, almost polished, as if someone had worked during the night. She touched the wood and it was warm, faintly humming again. "Thank you," she said with a smile. "I guess we're fixing each other." She spent the rest of the day repairing more areas, singing softly while she worked. The cabin responded in small ways, a light glow here, a soft hum there. It was as if it understood her kindness and returned it. At sunset, she sat outside watching the sky turn orange and pink. The cabin stood behind her, glowing gently under the light. For the first time in years, Mira felt proud. She had built something not for anyone else, but for herself. She looked at the notebook again that night before sleeping. One line caught her eye that she hadn't seen before. It read, "When the right heart finds this place, the system will wake." Her fingers trembled slightly as she read it again. "The right heart," she whispered. "Maybe it means someone who needs peace." She looked around the cabin. The soft blue light still glowed faintly in the dark. Mira smiled, closed her eyes, and whispered, "Then maybe that person is me." And as she drifted to sleep, the cabin hummed softly. a quiet, peaceful song that seemed to agree. Morning sunlight touched the mountains, spreading golden light through the trees. Mira stepped out of the cabin and took a deep breath. The air felt fresh, cool, and alive. Birds sang in the distance, and she could hear the soft sound of the river nearby. The cabin looked brighter every day. The cracks in the walls seemed smaller now. The roof no longer leaked when it rained, and the wood looked smoother, as if time itself had started to move backward. The strange glowing light still appeared sometimes, tiny blue lines that danced across the walls like soft fireflies. Mira no longer felt afraid of them. She felt comfort instead. She had been living there for almost 2 weeks now. Each day she woke up early, cleaned, gathered food, and repaired what she could. Her body had grown stronger, her face calmer. When she looked in the small glass she used as a mirror, she hardly recognized the tired, broken woman she once was. But one question still rested in her heart. What was this place really? That day, after breakfast, Mira sat by the table with the old notebook and the metallic device. She had tried to study both before, but today she decided to look more carefully. The notebook had words written in 2 styles, normal writing and strange symbols. Between the faded pages, she found a folded paper she hadn't noticed earlier. The paper showed a drawing of the cabin, exactly as it looked now, but around it were lines and circles, like maps of energy. At the top, in shaky handwriting, were the words, Prototype Shelter and for Human Recovery Project. Mira blinked. Human recovery? She said softly. What kind of project was this? She flipped the page and saw more details. It mentioned solar nodes, bio-nano repair, and adaptive environment system. She could barely understand those words, but she could tell one thing. This cabin was not just a normal building. She looked at the small glowing device on the table. It was silent now, but when she touched it gently, the blue light came back. It pulsed once, slow and soft. Then words appeared on the small cracked screen. System partial awake, energy level low. Mira's eyes widened. You can show text? She whispered. The screen flickered again. Human detected. Welcome, user. Her heart raced. The cabin had been reacting to her work, her care, her touch, and now it was speaking to her through this device. She pressed a button carefully. Who built this place? She asked, even though she knew it might not respond. The screen glowed again. Builder, Human Science Division, Earth Colony Support. Year unknown. Mira's breath caught. Earth Colony Support. What does that even mean? She read the notebook again and began to understand small pieces. Long ago, maybe even before her time, scientists had built this cabin as an experiment, a shelter that could protect lost or hurt travelers. It could use solar power and small invisible machines to repair itself. It was meant to take care of anyone who needed help, but the journal also mentioned something else. Conflict reached the surface. Project abandoned, Mira frowned. Conflict? She said softly. Maybe a war? If that was true, this cabin had been left here for decades, waiting. And somehow, after all that time, it had come alive again when she arrived. She stood up and looked around. You've been alone for so long, she said. Just like me. The lights on the wall blinked once as if answering her. She smiled gently. Then maybe we can help each other. Over the next few days, Mira worked harder than ever. She fixed the outer fence around the cabin, cleaned the path leading to the stream, and built a small garden from leftover seeds she found in her bag. Every evening she sat by the fire and talked softly to the cabin, telling it about her day, her thoughts, and her memories. At first, she felt silly talking to a building, but each time she spoke she noticed the soft hum growing stronger, as if the cabin was listening. Sometimes when she said something kind or thankful, the blue lights glowed brighter for a moment like a quiet smile. One night, while she was resting, the metallic device suddenly made a soft sound. Mira opened her eyes and saw new text appear on the screen. System memory partial restore. Then, without warning, the room around her changed. Blue light filled the air, forming shapes, glowing outlines of people moving, talking, and working. Mira sat up, her eyes wide. It was like watching memories come alive. The cabin wall showed scenes from the past. Men and women in uniforms building machines, planting trees, and testing strange tools. They laughed, talked, and wrote on data screens. She saw one of them, a woman with short dark hair, standing near the same table where Mira now sat. The woman smiled at someone and said words Mira couldn't hear clearly, but her face looked peaceful, full of hope. The light faded slowly, leaving only the soft hum again. Mira's eyes were wet. "You remember them," she said softly. "The people who made you." The device blinked once. Affirmative. Memory fragments recovered. Mira touched the table gently. "They built you to help people, didn't they?" Affirmative. The screen showed again. Then a new line appeared. Purpose. To protect human life. To restore peace. Her heart felt full. "Then you're doing your job perfectly," she said with a smile. "You saved me when I needed it most." The hum grew softer, almost warm. Mira leaned back and closed her eyes, listening. The next morning she woke early and went outside. The garden she had planted was growing faster than expected. Small green sprouts had already appeared. The soil looked richer than before. Maybe the cabin's strange system was helping it grow. She looked at the valley below, calm, wide, and endless. For the first time in a long time, she felt she belonged somewhere. Later that day, she decided to explore more of the area around the cabin. Maybe she could find more signs of the people who once worked here. She packed some food and water, then walked through the trees. The forest was peaceful, the air full of birdsong. After about an hour, she found an old metal pole half buried in the ground. It looked like part of a fence or antenna. Nearby, hidden under fallen leaves, she found another box, smaller, covered in moss. She cleaned it and carried it back to the cabin. When she connected it to the glowing device, the screen lit up again with new words. Backup data found. Syncing. The lights on the walls glowed brighter. A new wave of warmth filled the cabin. Then the device showed one short message before going silent again. "You are not alone." Mira's eyes filled with tears. She sat down slowly, the message still glowing faintly on the screen. "I know," she whispered. "I feel it now." That night, the cabin was filled with a soft blue light again. The hum was steady, peaceful, like a song made of wind and warmth. Mira sat near the fire, reading the old notebook once more. Now she understood. The cabin had waited for someone who believed in rebuilding, not giving up. She looked around and said softly, "You were made for healing." And maybe so was I. Outside, the wind moved gently through the trees, carrying her words into the night. The cabin answered with a soft glow. For the first time in her life, Mira didn't feel like she was running away anymore. She was exactly where she was meant to be, beside a forgotten miracle of human hands and heart. The next few mornings were filled with calm beauty. The sky was clear, the forest shined with morning dew, and the river sang softly in the distance. Mira woke early each day to tend her small garden, repair broken wood, and listen to the hum that had become the cabin's gentle heartbeat. She had grown used to the soft blue light that appeared at night. It no longer frightened her. Instead, it comforted her like a friend who watched quietly in the dark. The cabin was alive, and Mira had accepted it as part of her new life. Still, she felt there was something more, something the cabin was trying to tell her. One evening, as she sat near the fire, she looked at the glowing device again. It had been silent for 2 days now, only showing faint light from time to time. She touched it gently. "Are you still there?" she asked softly. The light pulsed once, then words appeared. "System level 63%. Voice access ready," Mira blinked. "Voice access?" she whispered. Before she could say another word, a calm sound filled the room, a quiet, clear tone that slowly changed into a gentle voice. It wasn't loud, not human, but peaceful, like the sound of wind through leaves. "Hello," it said softly. "User identified. Shelter active." Mira gasped and looked around. "You can speak?" "Yes," the voice replied. "My system has regained partial connection. I am the shelter core. You may call me Haven." "Haven," she repeated, smiling faintly. "That's a nice name." "Thank you," the voice said politely. "This name is derived from ancient records. It means a safe place." Mira felt a wave of warmth inside her chest. "You really are a safe place," she said. "You helped me when I had nowhere else to go." "You helped me too," Haven replied after a short pause. "This structure was fading. Your repairs and energy activated my system again. You restored balance." Mira's eyes softened. "Then we saved each other." The cabin lights glowed slightly brighter. "Yes," the voice said simply. From that night on, Mira and Haven talked often. The voice was calm, never demanding, always patient. It asked about her life, her memories, and the world outside. In return, it told her about the time when it was first built, how scientists once dreamed of creating safe shelters that could heal humans physically and emotionally. Humans were not always peaceful, Haven explained one evening. They fought and destroyed many of their creations, but there were some who still believed in hope. They built shelters like me to protect life, not to fight. Mira sat near the table, listening closely. The soft blue glow around the walls made the cabin look almost like a dream. "And they left you here?" she asked quietly. "Yes," Haven said. "The world changed. Many projects were lost, but I remained." She looked around and smiled sadly. "You must have been lonely." "I did not understand loneliness," Haven answered. "Until you came." The words touched Mira deeply. She looked at the wall, her eyes warm. "Then I'm glad I found you." Days passed and Mira began to change even more. She laughed again. She hummed songs while working and she felt peace growing in her heart. The garden she planted now had small green shoots. The cabin had repaired many of its parts. Some broken panels were replaced by smooth glowing surfaces that seemed to grow from the wood itself. One afternoon, Haven spoke again. "Mira, you have brought light to this place. Would you like to see something?" "What is it?" she asked. "Memories," Haven said. "I have recovered visual archives from long ago. They belong to the builders who created this place." Mira nodded eagerly. "Yes, show me." The walls shimmered with soft light. Slowly, shapes began to appear, blue and gold lines forming pictures in the air. She saw the same people she had seen in earlier visions. Men and women wearing light suits, smiling as they worked together. They built structures, planted trees, and tested devices that looked advanced yet peaceful. They dreamed of a world where nature and technology could live together. Haven said softly. They believed that humans could find harmony again. Mira watched silently. The people in the vision smiled, not out of pride but out of love for their work. Their eyes were full of hope. "Did they succeed?" she asked. "For a time," Haven replied, "but the world's noise grew louder. The shelters were forgotten. Yet their dream still lives within me." The light faded slowly and the cabin returned to normal. Mira sat quietly for a long time, her heart full. "Maybe it still lives in me too," she said softly. "I came here broken and you helped me remember who I was." "You repaired me," Haven said. "And I repaired you." That night a soft rain began to fall. Mira sat by the window watching droplets slide down the glass. She spoke gently. "Haven, why did you call this place a human recovery shelter?" The voice hummed for a moment before answering. "It was built to restore human life and spirit. Humans needed places of peace to heal from loss, from fear, and from themselves." Mira nodded slowly. "Then I was meant to find it." "Yes," Haven said. "You were the one who answered the signal." Her eyes widened. "Signal?" "When my systems lost power," Haven explained, "I sent a soft energy call through the atmosphere. It was a request for help. You were near when it reached the mountains. You followed it without knowing." Mira's heart trembled. "So, that's why I came here?" "Yes," Haven said. "You heard me." "And I heard you." Mira placed her hand on the wall. "Then we were both searching for each other." "Yes," Haven said gently. Two lost travelers meeting at the same path. The days that followed were quiet and warm. Mira continued to fix small things. The window frames, the fence, and the garden path. Each time she worked, the cabin hummed softly, almost like it was breathing with her. Sometimes Haven told her small stories about forests that once covered the earth, about rivers that sang louder than any machine, and about the humans who once believed in simple kindness. Mira would sit for hours, listening, her heart growing lighter with each story. One evening, she asked, "Haven, what will happen now that you're awake again?" "I will continue my purpose," the voice replied, "to protect and restore human life. You have given me power again, Mira, and now I can share that peace with others." She smiled. "Others?" "Yes," Haven said. "Travelers still walk the mountains. Many are lost, as you were. When they come near, I will guide them here." Mira looked out the window at the dark forest. The idea filled her with warmth. "Then we can help them together. You wish to stay?" Haven asked softly. She nodded. "Yes, this is my home now." The blue lights glowed brighter for a moment, then dimmed gently. "Welcome home, Mira," Haven said. That night the cabin was alive with light and warmth. The rain had stopped and stars shined above the trees. Mira sat by the door watching the soft glow of the garden she had built. The plants were growing fast, their leaves shining faintly under the moonlight. Haven's voice spoke again, quiet and kind. "Do you feel peace now?" Mira smiled, tears in her eyes.
"Yes," she said.
"I thought peace was something far away, but maybe it was waiting right here all along." "You gave it life again," Haven replied. "That is the human way, to rebuild even after loss." Mira looked up at the sky, feeling the cool night air on her face. "Then maybe humans aren't so lost after all," she whispered. The cabin hummed softly, like a gentle answer carried by the wind. For the first time in her life, Mira didn't feel broken. She felt whole. The morning sunlight touched the mountains with golden light. The trees shimmered with dew and the air smelled of pine and wet earth. Mira stepped outside, her boots pressing softly against the soil. The cabin behind her glowed gently, the windows shining with a soft blue hue. She took a deep breath. "Good morning, Haven." "Good morning, Mira," the calm voice replied from inside the cabin. "Temperature stable, air fresh. Your garden has grown by 9% overnight." Mira smiled. 9%? That's fast. "The soil here is rich," Haven said. "It responds well to care." She walked toward her small garden where green leaves danced in the light. Tiny vegetables and herbs had started to bloom. The once barren ground now looked full of life. It made her heart warm with pride. A few months ago she had been lost, tired, heartbroken, unsure of her future. Now each sunrise gave her a reason to wake up, to build something new. The cabin had changed too. It was no longer the broken, dusty shelter she first entered. It had repaired itself through her efforts and Haven's systems. The walls glowed softly at night. The roof no longer leaked, and a gentle warmth spread through every corner. One wall now displayed maps of the surrounding forest. Haven used faint light to show paths, rivers, and small valleys. "I have detected signs of travelers within 30 kilometers, the voice said one morning. "They are moving slowly, likely exploring the region." Mira looked at the glowing dots on the map. "Other people?" "Yes," Haven replied. "They seem peaceful. I can extend a signal to guide them here if you wish." She thought for a moment, her eyes soft. "Let's wait. Maybe they will find their way naturally." "As you wish," Haven said. That day Mira decided to explore further into the forest. She packed a small bag with dried fruits, water, and one of the small devices she had repaired from the cabin, a small circular light that acted as a guide beacon. "I'll be back before sunset," she told Haven. "Be careful," the voice said gently. "The northern path is uneven. I will monitor your steps through your signal device." She nodded and stepped into the trees. The forest welcomed her with whispers of leaves and the smell of life. Birds sang and sunlight streamed between the branches. She walked quietly, feeling strong and free. Each step reminded her of how far she had come, from fear to strength, from loneliness to peace. After walking for an hour, she found something unexpected, a broken drone tangled in vines. Its body was silver and covered in moss, its lights long gone. She crouched and brushed off the dirt. "Haven," she said through her small device, "I found something." "I see it," Haven replied. That drone belonged to an old exploration group. Its memory core may still hold information. Can I bring it back? "Yes," the voice answered. "I can help restore it," Mira smiled. "Then I guess I'll carry it home." By evening she returned to the cabin, her arms tired but her heart full of excitement. Haven guided her with small lights that flickered through the forest until she reached the door. "Welcome back," the voice said softly. "You are safe." She set the drone on the table. "Can you wake it up?" "Processing," Haven replied. The walls glowed faintly as soft energy surrounded the drone. Within minutes, one of its eyes blinked weakly. "Unit active," a thin metallic voice said. Mira gasped. "It's alive?" "Partially," Haven said. "Its systems are weak, but it recognizes me." The drone turned slowly, its small sensors blinking. "Shelter core, reconnected, mission incomplete." "What mission?" Mira asked. "To deliver human knowledge to recovery sites," the drone replied. "Project Haven. One of many." Mira looked at Haven's lights. "There were more shelters like you?" "Yes," Haven said slowly. "Across different lands. Many were lost. But this drone may help locate others." Mira's eyes widened. "So I wasn't the only one who found a place like this?" "Perhaps not," Haven replied. "If other shelters still function, more humans may be rebuilding in silence." The thought filled Mira with wonder. Then we have work to do, she said with a smile. Days passed as Mira and Haven repaired the drone. Each repair made it stronger and it began to hover again, softly humming. She named it Leaf because it moved gently, like one carried by the wind. Leaf became helpful around the cabin. It scanned the garden, cleaned the roof, and even carried small tools when Mira worked outside. It also helped extend Haven's signal deeper into the mountains. Mira, Haven said one morning, Leaf has detected an energy pulse from the west. It may be another shelter. Mira's eyes widened. Really? Yes, it is weak but constant. You could reach it in 2 days of walking. She thought quietly for a moment. The idea of another shelter and maybe another person stirred her heart. But she also looked at her home, the garden and the glowing cabin. I don't want to leave you, she said softly. You won't, Haven replied kindly. Our signal will stay with you. But others may need help as you once did. Mira closed her eyes and smiled. Then I'll go. Not today, but soon. Before she left, she wanted to make sure the cabin was fully ready to welcome others. She and Haven worked together to build a second sleeping area, repaired a water pipe near the stream, and placed small signal beacons around the mountain trail. When she finished, she stood at the door and looked around proudly. The once lonely cabin now looked like a living home, warm, safe, and full of quiet light. You have done well, Haven said gently. This place is alive again, Mira nodded. And so am I. The next morning, as sunlight painted the valley gold, Mira packed her bag again. Leaf hovered beside her, glowing faintly. Haven, she said, if I find someone out there, I'll bring them here. I will keep the fire ready, the voice replied. And Mira, thank you. For what? She asked softly. For teaching me what it means to live again. She smiled, tears in her eyes. And you taught me what it means to hope again. She took one last look at the cabin, the home that had saved her, and started walking west, her boots steady, her heart calm. The path ahead was long, but she didn't fear it anymore. As she walked through the forest, she felt the presence of Haven and Leaf close to her. The air was alive with quiet sounds, the wind, the water, and the heartbeat of the earth. For the first time, Mira felt not like a wanderer, but a messenger of peace. She was no longer the broken woman who came to the mountains seeking escape. She was someone new, strong, kind, and full of purpose. In the distance, a faint blue light blinked through the trees. She smiled and followed it, knowing it was another lost voice waiting to be heard. Back at the cabin, Haven watched through its sensors. The garden glowed, the stream whispered softly, and the home stood tall among the trees. It spoke quietly to itself, almost like a prayer. Humans rebuild. They always rebuild, and somewhere on the trail Mira smiled as if she had heard it. The forest whispered in agreement, and the world, slowly, gently, began to heal again.